reporting. These are all nowadays synonyms, and various international organizations are there, and there. So that is sustainability. That is their corporate responsibility. That is there for their own long-term survival that is needed. So sustainability reporting, uh, this kind of what do you say, ESG reporting. What is it? ESG reporting, environmental social governance reporting. These are all nowadays synonyms, and various international organizations are there, and they have the national wings there. So for example, there is in the part one you will be learning about International Integrated Reporting Council. So that's about incorporating the other types of capital. We will be learning in detail about integrated reporting in the first part, for part one actually. So then there is Global Reporting Initiative. That is, I believe that is, what is it actually, that organization is called? OECD initiative, right? OECD initiative, that Global Reporting Initiative. I believe Prince of Charles is the patron for that, and that's an international organization. And then, like FASB, for this kind of reporting, there is another organization internationally called SASB, Sustainability Accounting Standard Board, right? Then, so there are various international initiatives to really see how reporting should be improved to really companies really communicate their efforts in sustainability. That's really important. So now let me, I think I'm just bit losing a focus. Let me come back to that. See, companies often publish their results regarding CSR and sustainability issues either in separate CSR or sustainability reports online, or by integrating this information into their annual reports. You can really see big reports about in India by Companies Act. You are supposed to enumerate all what you're doing in the corporate sustainability. But in the IARC, the integrated reporting, when you learn, you will see the six capital and its impact, all that. That should be communicated what the companies are doing towards this kind of activities. So there should be a transparent reporting. It can be combined there with the annual report, or it can be separately issued. It should be very to the point. It should not be too much bulky. But all these reports, when you see it, is around 200 pages. But that is a very condensed report, they claim. But there are actually the norms of presentation are getting developed through this kind of organizations. Like I told you, there have been several standard setting bodies in this area, uh, like IARC, International Integrated Reporting Council, Sustainability Accounting Standard Board, Global Reporting Initiative. They are all organizations working in the sustainability field in the international, right? So the major issues addressed by the CSR and sustainability are payment of a, okay, before I get into that, let me just marry this thought process with what I have initially made a derogatory comment actually. Like CSR, when you hear about it, you hear about the biryani distribution, right? No? So so much of philanthropic activities by the companies. Actually, this making legal, some people don't like it actually, because the free market, if you have heard of, in the school you have learned laissez-faire. I don't know how you pronounce it, laissez-faire or laissez-faire or whatever. It's a French word which is requiring the government to leave the companies alone. There should be least intervention in the matter of corporate affairs by the government. The businesses should function free. It's a free market economy, right? That's the founding. Laissez-faire is the founding principle of capitalism. When you ask the businesses to really go for this kind of philanthropic activities, that's against capitalism. Actually, like the true capitalists, like Adam Smith and all, say that actually when somebody says that they are doing something good for you, you should run away from them, because everybody has to take their own interest. Like I strongly oppose this kind of charity as a business, right? every individual, if they do their work, actually, if I take care of my parents and if I take care of my servants who come to work for me, actually, if I want to really see a difference in their way of life, and if I do that with a true sense of what do you say, value adhered way, then that will really result in society transforming. So this NGOs and all these organizations really transforming society is not something which I think what is needed. What I would say is actually instead of transforming society, every individual should try to transform themselves. Then the society will automatically come in power, right? And when you really transform yourself, you are really going into making profitability, but not that profitability for 1 or 2 years, for long term. So then all the sustainability concerns will come into your automatically in your thought process and the way you are working. So you should have a long term welfare, your own welfare in mind. Actually speaking, people who talk about big values are thinking about their own welfare after that, right? So there it is nothing wrong. You have to take care of it yourself, and then in the process, everything will work well, right? So when there is too much of philanthropic activities coming, and the governments are asking CSR activities to be implemented in every organization, the free market thinkers, like one of the notable free market economists is Milton Friedman. The way he writes, his name is F.R. Friedman, Friedman. He got Nobel Prize in 1976 in economics science, in economics, right? 1976 Nobel Prize winner. And what he was an advocate of the, what do you say, free market economy. He was opposed to this kind of lawmaking in the CSR field. So in 1976 he got Nobel Prize. What he says is actually the business of business is business. The business of business is business. The businesses are there to do the business, not philanthropic activity. But if they do their business, if they want to sustain in the long run, like the Coca-Cola example I said, then only they would get the social license to operate. That's what. So you need to really see the pitfalls of somebody uh, doing so much to evade tax and then finding loopholes in the law to suppress their tax liability, and then giving away biryani is not good enough. So you have to really see the major issues addressed by CSR and sustainability are the payment of their fair share of taxes, their evaluation of the impact of their activities on the environment, whether they are ensuring human rights, their throughout the value chain from purchases to the supply of goods, are they ensuring human rights, right? Refraining from engaging in any type of corruption harmful to democratic values and fair competition. All these issues should be addressed in the CSR Act, not just their their a percentage of profit spent on biryani and then charitable activities. So you have to really see that businesses are paying their due share of taxes. They are not harming the society environment. They harm the environment. They need to really do something to preserve that, like the Coca-Cola social license to operate. And then the human rights are respected all throughout the value chain. They don't have child labor. They are not discriminating people based on the race, all those things. Like, so then refraining from activities engaging in any type of corruption harmful to democratic values and fair competition, MRTP, all those things should be there. Viewed, what do you say, FCPA, MRTP, all those things are really addressing that, whether they are complying with those things are really important before you distribute biryani. So, what is the right order for corporate social responsibility? Right? The business of business is business. That is the Michael Friedman thinking. And then And if you want to sustain in the long run, if you need to do all these things, that should be done in your own interest. So thinking about that, Archie B. Carroll had come up with a CSR pyramid. This is introduced, and this is really marrying these two concepts like this. So here, if you understand the Archie B. Carroll's CSR pyramid, then you will really see that there is an order, what they are supposed to do first before they distribute biryani, how that foundation is built up, you will really see. The first and foremost responsibility of any business is their business, to be profitable, to remain there. So that is the first thing. Their economic responsibility towards their shareholders, their financial stakeholders, that's the foundation. That's actually required by the society, because a business has to be there, no? Right? So you have to really see that I'll just underline that word. Basically, a company should stay in business. So for that, you need to be profitable. Be profitable. That is the first thing in that CSR pyramid. That's the foundation. Unless they are in the business, unless they make profit, they will not be surviving. They will not be there in the business. So that's the first response. Right? Then they need to comply with all the laws, MRTP laws, whatever law you can, GST. These are all there. They have to pay their legal dues. But here, you should really see the law in the spirit of the law, not by the word, not by seeing the loopholes in the law. Like big companies are spending so much money for experts, the so-called experts in the field, who would see loopholes to comply with the law and pay no tax. So that's not a spirit. They should go by the spirit of the law, not by the letter of the law. That's the legal responsibility. Obey laws and regulations by the spirit of the law, not finding loopholes. Right? So that is also required by society from an organization. Right? And once they have that legal compliance, not just mere legal compliance, by the spirit of the law and enactment, then they can think of going beyond the law and then have an ethical behavior, right? That is expected by the society. Do what is just and fair. Avoid harm to the society. Not just going by the legalities of it, legal requirement, go beyond that, right? So here, the, the word I would like you to mark in the textbook, I will tell you, when it comes to responsibility, every organization has a responsibility to be profitable, right? Economically viable and therefore profitable. Basically, a company should stay in business, right? And then when it comes to legal responsibility, the word I said you should really understand. It is not just by the letter of the word, of the law. They should operate according to the spirit of the law. They should pay their legal taxes, everything. Reliance, all those big companies, if they pay their taxes, the governments can do wonders. GST, shares, everything. But those people are constantly researching how to really reduce tax legally, complying with the law, but not really understanding the spirit of the law. That is why every now and then we have amendments to the Income Tax Act, everything, to really plug that loophole. So these corporates who are really having a social responsibility, right? They should really go by the spirit of the law, and then once they understand that there is a loophole, there is a loophole, then you can plug that. Not saying that that is not needed, but they should operate according to the spirit of the law. Then comes to the ethical responsibilities. Here you go beyond, above and beyond to do the right thing and avoid harming society, even if the law does not require it. That is the ethical responsibility. This is the level at which managing CSR becomes complex. You should understand that. So, economic responsibility complying with the law is really easy, that is required by the society. But ethical responsibility is going beyond that. But here you are actually uh, getting into a conflict with the basic. Because when you want to do like something more than the law, then that affects your profit. So you see that sometimes jeopardize the basic, your responsibility to be profitable. So this is the level at which you start seeing the conflict, right? This is the level at which managing CSR becomes complex, as acting ethically is not necessarily profitable as required by the first level. Okay, so that's about the ethical responsibility. Then the last level, the fourth one, two, three, fourth level, philanthropic responsibilities, form the top of the CSR pyramid. These responsibilities requires organizations to give back to the society, right? In the form of money, goods, social needs, as compensation. Whatever you do, you are harming the society. The very act that you are just walking as a kid, you are killing so many uh, small, what do you say, what's the right word actually? I don't get that actually. So many living beings are being killed as we inhale, as we exhale, like that. When we walk, we should understand that, right? So we have a responsibility to compensate for that harm of just living in society as a human being. Like that, whatever you do, there is some harm done by being here. So every individual, every organization has a responsibility to give back to the society for the harm they are causing to the society, but by just being life, not by not paying the taxes or that, but just by operating in the society, they should understand that all of us, when we are alive, we are harming to the society, but that's unavoidable. So once we have the being, we have a moral responsibility to give back to the society for the harm we have created to the society. No company can really survive, I mean, have a manufacturing concern and then have claim zero pollution. So that's a part of that, right? You have to have that. So, but you should really try to give back to the society. But that is coming as the last step, philanthropic activity. But here, what is happening is actually they do research to really see how to avoid tax. At the end, out of that profit, what they make, they give this philanthropic activities money for this. The society is more becoming more and more aware of this. Of course, if you throw biryani, everybody will take it. Then that's not good behavior. Like even to a rich crowd of kids, right? If you go distribute chocolates, which they are having plenty at home, they would still go for that. And somebody can really take a photograph and then say that, see the kids, we are distributing food, right? But actually speaking, uh, if they don't take that food, then there is something wrong with that, right? This all these biryanis, food kit, what they are giving, is that in the right direction of transforming society? You should really think, right? Is that really making a difference, right? Is it after doing all these things? So you should. There is a level like a company has to be profitable. You have to really see that they are in the business that is really required by the society. They have to comply with the laws by the spirit of the law, not by the word of the law. That is a legal requirement. They have to pay all these taxes, not engaging experts to really find loopholes. Are they doing that? They are not doing that, right? Are they having an ethical sense to the extent possible? Go beyond the law. Are they doing that? They are not doing that. At the end, out of the money they have amassed through unethical means, illegal ways, if they distribute biryani, if those biryani is taken by people, that's not an indication that they are doing the right thing. So more and more people are becoming aware of that kind of thing. So when you talk about CSR activities, you should really see all these things, and you should really see that CSR activity is not just philanthropic activity. It is talking about paying your due share of taxes. It is talking about your limiting your the impact on the environment. It is talking about the human rights preserved all throughout the value chain. It is talking about the minimizing corruption in the society and upholding the values, democratic values and fair competition. So these things are really important when you talk about CSR activity. Okay, so many companies choose to integrate their ESG reporting in their annual reporting nowadays. As such, you have plenty of reporting available. I think as of July 2020, 90% of the companies in the S&P 500 have already made like publication of their CSR activities, right? So in India, I believe there is like Sustainability Accounting Standard Board. Actually, Sustainability Accounting Standard Board internationally has got nothing to do with FASB. That's a separate board, but they wanted to name it like FASB, SASB, Sustainability Accounting Standard. But in India, when it came, actually, Institute of Chartered Accountants of India has got a committee. I think in the last 1 year, they have set up within the council a sustainability accounting standard board to really ensure that the companies are giving out pertinent information in this direction, right? There are many global initiatives like IARC, International Integrated Reporting Council, which you will be learning in part 1, but other notable agencies like carbon dating, all that, now those things are coming, not carbon dating, carbon reporting, sorry, carbon reporting, all those things are coming under the GRI, Global Reporting Initiatives. So those things are going in a very right way to develop standards, but even now the standards are not in place to really force companies to report, but more and more transparency are coming. So gone are the days the people who just distribute biryani are discharging their corporate responsibility cannot anymore say. You have to really see this. You should understand this CSR pyramid. So CSR pyramid should be there in your mind. Economic responsibilities, legal responsibilities, ethical responsibilities, and philanthropic responsibilities. But when it comes to ethical and philanthropic responsibilities, there can be a real big conflict with your being profitable objective. So let me take you through that pyramid once again. Here it is to be profitable, that is required by society, that is the foremost responsibility to stay in business. Then legal responsibilities, it is not the letter of the law, it is spirit of the law, obey laws and regulations through the spirit of that, that is also required by the society. And then ethical responsibility, do what is just and fair, do the right thing, do not harm the society, avoid harm and do the right thing that is expected by the society. And philanthropic responsibility, it is desired by society, desired by society. Be a good corporate citizen. Every citizen, when he lives, he is harming the society. That understanding will force you to give back to the society for the harm you have done to the society. But that is the last step in that. So that's it. These two, you should really appreciate that can have a genuine conflict with your objective of being profitable. So it's a trade-off. Carroll's pyramid suggests that corporate has to fulfill responsibility at 4 levels. A responsible business is one which qualifies all the levels of responsibility. A responsible business is one which qualifies all the levels of responsibility. Economic responsibility, being profitable is the only way for a company to be able to survive in the long term and benefit the society, right? Legal responsibility, organization should obey the law and operate according to the spirit of law. That's what I said. Ethical responsibility, businesses should do the right thing and avoid harming society, even if law does not require it. That's ethical responsibility. here you can have a possible conflict with digital responsibility. Philanthropic responsibilities. Businesses should give back to the society as compensation for their harm to society. Now, this kind of CSR initiatives should be published along with the annual report or in the website. So now it's really becoming a trend and then legal requirement in various countries, like CSR reporting or corporate responsibility reporting or sustainability reporting. Another word for that I told you is ESG reporting, economic, social, and governance reporting. So all those things are there. So formats are getting developed, but not yet widely popular. You have companies are still having no standards for this thing, but then more and more efforts by the uh, international organizations are coming back. Okay. So we have finished everything. We have half an hour more. We can do all the questions now. If an IMA member has a no, this is 14. This is the first question. Question number 11. IMA statement on management accounting values and ethics from inception to practice recommends a defined code of conduct and ethical behavior for all organizations, right? Uh, One advantage of having such a code is that read it clearly and then give your answer in the class conversation. May recommends a defined code of conduct and ethical behavior for all organizations. What is one advantage of having such a code of ethics? It provides employees with guidance for handling unfamiliar situations. I've told you, in those white spaces where an unanticipated situation comes, it provides a touchstone. That is what I told you. So it is correct. It ensures ethical behavior by all employees. Nothing can ensure behavior by everybody. Then shields the organization from liability in case of loss of stockholder value due to fraud? No. Eases the investigative process performed by police and prosecutors in case of suspected fraud. In case of a suspected fraud, whether you have a code of ethics, like, doesn't really matter. Then, next question. Which one of the following is a true statement regarding organizational ethics? So each A, B, C, D are true or false question. So which is true? Please stop. Let's read it. Which one is a true statement? As long as officer and employee behavior meet the requirements of the law, the organization can be considered to have functioning system of ethical. But no, mere legal behavior is not good enough. That is wrong. A strong sense of ethics on the part of employees who are in the best position to appropriate cash and other assets is the most vital part of the functioning system of ethical behavior. If you are a strong sense of ethics on the part of employees who are in the best position to appropriate cash, so a code of ethics is applicable only to cashier? No, that is wrong. If an organization has a strong code of ethics, so here actually a strong sense of ethics is needed from the board level to, and it should cascade down to all levels of employees. That's what you saying. Then, if an organization has a strong code of ethical conduct in place, the role of employees training can be downplayed. No, you have to give orientation and then not only that, ongoing training, everything is needed to develop the appropriate human capital. So if an organization has got a strong code of ethical conduct in place, you cannot see, I will tell you, some more changes the organization culture you should really, I mean, the way the organizations behave and the function in modern days, you should really understand actually. See, if you have no organization can claim to have a code of conduct in place. You know why? Because gone are the days where you see an employee working in an organization till he retires. So if that was the culture, you could really see how your seniors work in an organization. But now it's not like that. Almost everybody is contract employee. An average employee's span in a place is 2 or 3 years because they shuffle the employees all that. So their chances of how the seniors are doing and then having an organizational conduct in place which will perpetuate is not true because the employees really get changed. They are contract employees like that, right? So the senior most employee would be 3 years, and they keep changing, right? So a training is needed. What is expected of them would be really having a refresher every 2 3 years, and orientation is needed. But at the same time, you need to have ongoing training also, right? So you cannot downplay employee training. Paying attention to whistleblowers plays a significant role in maintaining a effective ethical atmosphere. That's really important. That is upheld by Sarbanes-Oxley Act. So that is really an important step in implementing a good ethical culture within the organization. Next question. Which one of the following is a true statement regarding organizational ethics? So again, true false questions. So Terence has already given the answer. A comprehensive framework of corporate ethical behavior is a prerequisite for an effective system of internal control. I explained so much about it. So that is a correct statement, there's no doubt. But why the other things are wrong? An effective system of internal control is the opposite. So it is exact opposite of that. So that is not to give. Then, if a functioning system of ethical behavior is in place, the organization is able to devote fewer resources to developing. No, human capital is a resource which you need to really try to develop all the time, right? Because the employees keep moving, so you need to really say, you cannot say that a functioning system of ethical behavior is in place. Now I don't have to worry. You cannot say that. Employees keep moving, and you cannot see like in the earlier days employees loyal to the organization continue in that organization for donkey number of years. That culture is gone. So you cannot really escape that. See, you have to give proper training, everything on a continuing basis. Organizational culture is determined mostly by industries in which the firm. I don't think actually there is an organizational culture applicable for software industry. Probably a behavioral culture may be there, but when it comes to ethics, I don't think the ethics applicable to textile industry, ethics applicable to uh, software industry like that, I don't think there is anything. But then the there could be some work culture associated with that. That is not an ethical culture. That's not a synonym for ethics culture. Uh, so anyway, we know A is correct. Question number 14. Give your answer, then we will go through that. Okay, 14, I see some answers B. That is correct, but let me read it actually. The management team attended an ethics training session at the IMA annual conference and subsequently made plans to enhance their ethics program. So the management is taking some action after attending the IMA annual conference. The president plans to chair a committee of employees to review the company's behavioral issues, while CFO intends to review the ethical standards applicable to the finance department. The manager of HR department will investigate the feasibility of establishing a whistleblowing framework that includes a hotline for reporting. So they are really charged up after attending the ethic program of IMA. These activities exemplify organizational transparency? No. Leadership by example? Yes. To some extent, they are really doing what they could do towards ethical culture. So this could be an answer. Measurement of ethical compliance? No. Alignment of internal controls with ethical standards? No. So out of the four, D is the best answer. Right? Next. Which of the following ethics related leadership actions best support the effective deployment of a code of ethics by managers and supervisors? Give your answer in the class comment.